Picture this. It's one of the busiest travel weeks of the entire year. Millions of us are trying to get home for the holidays. Then, out of nowhere, the weather turns, and the whole system just grinds to a halt. This is the story of a storm that didn't just cancel flights. It actually exposed some pretty shocking vulnerabilities in modern air travel. So let's set the scene. It's late December 2025, and a massive winter storm, nicknamed Devin by some, just slams U.S. Northeast. And we're talking a brutal mix of heavy snow, freezing rain, and ice, all hitting right at the absolute peak of holiday travel. Just a recipe for total chaos.
And the impact? Oh, it was immediate. Across the entire country, the flight trackers just lit up. More than 22,000 delays. Think about that number for a second. But for thousands of people, it was way worse than just a delay. Over 1,800 flights were canceled. Just gone. Travel plans completely thrown out the window, leaving passengers totally stranded. Yeah, on the ground, it was pretty much the definition of a perfect storm. You had states of emergency declared in New York and New Jersey. Major hubs like JFK and Newark were practically paralyzed by the conditions. And again, this all happened during one of the most critical travel weeks of the whole year. So the storm hits, the system is in chaos, and then you get that notification you've been dreading. Your flight has been canceled. What do you do? What are you actually owed in a situation like this? Well, this is where it starts to get a little tricky. All right, here's the most crucial thing you have to understand. The reason for the cancellation is everything. Your rights as a passenger completely change depending on whether it was the airline's fault or an act of Mother Nature. So a controllable delay is pretty straightforward. It's something the airline is responsible for, like a maintenance problem or a crew scheduling mess up. An uncontrollable delay, on the other hand, is an event like Storm Devin, where weather is the bad guy. And trust me, that one little distinction changes everything. So to really understand what passengers weren't getting during this storm, it's actually helpful to look at what your rights are when things are the airline's fault. First, and this is the big one, you need to remember this. According to guidance from the New York Attorney General, if an airline cancels your flight for any reason and you decide not to travel, you are entitled to a full cash refund. Not a voucher, not a credit, cash. Now, for those controllable issues, the Department of Transportation actually has this handy dashboard. It shows what the big airlines have promised to give you, like meals if you're stuck for a few hours, or a hotel for an overnight cancellation. But, and this is a huge but, this is only when the airline is at fault. And that right there is the brutal truth for the thousands of people who were stranded by Storm Devin. Because it was a weather event, an uncontrollable delay, all those commitments for food, hotels, and getting rebooked on another airline, they just didn't apply. But hold on, because this is where the story takes a fascinating turn. The impact of this storm goes way deeper than just canceled flights. It actually uncovers a surprising, kind of hidden vulnerability in our air travel system. And some researchers found a whole new way to measure the real human cost of all this. So instead of just counting how many flights were canceled, a recent study looked at something they call airport dwell time. It's exactly what it sounds like, the total amount of time passengers are physically stuck waiting inside the airport terminal. It's a much better way to measure the actual, human misery of a travel disruption. So when you start measuring things this way, looking at passenger wait times, which airports got hit the hardest, the results are not what you'd expect. The airports that saw the biggest jump in the average time a person had to wait weren't the giant hubs. It was places like Buffalo, Portland, and Seattle. Now, to understand why that happened, we need a quick lesson in how airlines work. There are basically two main models. You've got the centralized hub and spoke system, used by giants like Delta and American, where everything flows through a few huge airports. And then you have the decentralized point-to-point model, used by airlines like Southwest, which is usually thought to be more flexible and better at handling disruptions. But, and you're gonna love this, the study dropped an absolute bombshell. I'm quoting directly here. The results reveal that the greater extent of impact can be attributed to airlines whose operation model is more decentralized. I mean, wow, that completely flips what everyone thought they knew on its head. And this is where it all just clicks into place. It's incredible. Look at the left. That's the airline breakdown for Buffalo, the airport that got hit the hardest. It's dominated by Midwest and Southwest. Now look at the chart on the right. It ranks airlines by how decentralized they are. And who's sitting right at the top? The very same two airlines. This just perfectly shows that shocking link between the supposedly resilient model and the airports that actually suffered the most. So what does this one storm really tell us about the future of flying? Was this whole thing just a freak event, or is it maybe a preview of what's to come? Well, the science on this is pretty clear. Extreme weather events are getting more frequent and more intense. So this isn't a one-off problem. Storms like Devin are becoming a bigger and bigger threat to our entire transportation system. And that leaves us with a really big question, right? This storm revealed hidden cracks in systems we all thought were strong. So as these extreme weather events start to feel more and more normal, is our travel system actually ready for the turbulence that's clearly ahead?